voice. But before we do, I want to briefly discuss new revelations about Hillary Clinton's very famous emails. According to the FBI report, the FBI did not find that hostile foreign actors, and would think of this, it's so important, when they went around and were so vigilant, at least as far as this, but they found that hostile foreign actors gained access to the personal email accounts of individuals with whom Clinton was in regular contact, and in doing so, obtained emails sent to or received by Clinton on her personal account. And every time she talks about the subject, it's different. She's got to get her act together. Remember, Hillary Clinton was emailing about the drone program, among many other extremely sensitive matters. This is yet more evidence that Clinton is unfit to be your commander-in-chief. By the way, the whole country saw how unfit she was at the town hall last night, where she refused to take accountability for her failed policies in the Middle East that have produced millions of refugees, unleashed horror of radical Islamic terrorism all over, and made us less safe than ever before. Throughout it all, she put the country, and I mean the entire country, at risk in order to cover up her pay-for-play scandals as Secretary of State. These include scandals giving up uranium to Russia, doing favors for UBS Bank, and selling contracts to friends and family in Haiti. It's all about hiding criminal enterprise, and that's what it's about. As part of her criminal cover-up, Hillary's, and you know her staff, you know it well, you read about it all the time, you just read about it, and it's getting worse and worse. Hillary Clinton's staff deleted and digitally bleached, which is acid cleaned, her emails after receiving a congressional subpoena. That's after receiving, not before. That's after receiving. She gets a subpoena from the United States Congress, and she deletes and bleaches. She also, and her staff, destroyed some of her 13 different phones, but this time with a hammer. I've never done that. Then, when she was interviewed by the FBI, she claimed she couldn't remember important events 39 times. She couldn't even remember whether she was trained or handling classified information. Didn't remember anything about it. So if she really didn't remember, that's a problem. And if she did remember, that's a problem. She even said she didn't know what the letter C stood for, whether it was confidential, classified information, or something. All the while, as Hillary and Bill raked in millions of dollars from special interest, the world was falling apart. Hillary Clinton's policies produced ruin in Libya, Iraq, and Syria. Absolute ruin and death. She failed in Russia. She failed in China. She failed miserably in North Korea. Her policies unleashed ISIS, spread terrorism, and put Iran on a path to nuclear weapons, not to mention the ransom payments. Oh, those ransom payments. Remember 2 weeks ago, it was $400 million in cash. Well, yesterday we found out that in cash, it was $1.7 billion. These are unheard of. This is cash. This isn't wire transfer. This isn't check. This is cash, $1.7 billion. And then you say, is that going to terror or is that going to people's bank accounts? I actually think it's going to both. On top of it all, Hillary Clinton is trigger happy, totally trigger happy. She's raced to invade, intervene, and topple regimes. She believes in globalism, not Americanism. Everybody understands that. Last night, she even falsely said, no American died in Libya. Now, I heard that, and I said, could she have forgotten so quickly? Then she also falsely said there's no ground troops in Iraq, even though we have 5,000 military personnel there right now. Iraq is one of the biggest differences in this race. I opposed going in, and I did oppose it, despite the media saying no, yes, no. I opposed going in, and I opposed the reckless way Hillary Clinton took us out, along with President Obama, letting ISIS fill that big, terrible void. But I was opposed to the war from the beginning, long after my interview with Howard Stern. But 3 months before the Iraq War started, I said in an interview with Neil Cavuto that perhaps we shouldn't be doing it yet, and that the economy, these are quotes, that the economy, this was on live television, the economy is a much bigger problem as far as the president is concerned. This was before the war started by a very short distance. Then on March 25th of 2003, just after the war had started, just days after, just a little while after, I was quoted as saying, the war is a mess, and yet more evidence that I had opposed the war from the start. I said the war is a mess on television somewhere. In July of 2003, I said I would love to see New York City and some of our cities and some of the states of our nation get some of the money that's going toward Iraq and other places. Because you know, they really need it, and they need it badly. Well, I said that. We have numerous other quotes too, by the way, both before and shortly after. Then in August of 2004, very early in the conflict, extremely early in the conflict, right at the beginning, I made a detailed statement in an interview to Esquire Magazine. So right at the beginning. And by the way, numerous honest reporters said, well, Trump may have said it at the beginning, and some said he did say it at the beginning because they had Cavuto's clip and other clips. But some said, well, you know, it doesn't matter because right at the beginning, he made very strong statements. This is many years ago. And here's what Esquire Magazine said. This is a quote, an absolute quote. Look at the war in Iraq and the mess that we're in. This is right after the war started. I would never have handled it that way. Does anybody really believe that Iraq is going to be a wonderful democracy where people are going to run down to the voting box and gently put in their ballot, and the winner is happily going to step up and to lead the country? So innocently. I go, come on. 2 minutes after we leave, there's going to be a revolution. Pretty good. And the meanest, toughest, smartest, most vicious guy will take over. Well, that's going to be combinations of ISIS and Iran. Iran's taken over. They're taking over among the richest and largest oil reserves in the world. We let them do it. We let them do it. Should have never been in the war, but we should have never, ever gotten out of the war the way Barack Obama got us out, along with Hillary Clinton, because we opened it up for ISIS. So it continued. What was the purpose? This is me right at the beginning of the war, in an article. What was the purpose of this whole thing? What was the purpose? Hundreds and hundreds of young people are being killed. And what about the people coming back with no arms and with no legs? Not to mention the other side, all of those Iraqi kids who've been blown to pieces. And it turns out that all of the reasons for the war are just blatantly wrong. All this for nothing. All this for nothing. This was right at the beginning of the war. Then they see, I see the lies last night. Donald Trump was always in favor of the war in Iraq. That's why I had to do this. Because the media is so dishonest, so terribly dishonest, and you understand it, and you understand it. The media is so terribly dishonest, so I had to do this. I ended with, I would have been tougher on terrorism. Bin Laden would have been caught a long time ago before he was ultimately caught, prior to the downing of the World Trade Center. So this was right at the beginning, and those other statements were before the war even started. And the Howard statement was long before, and it was the first time anybody ever asked me about Iraq. And I said, I don't know. It was very, but that was superseded because before the war, much closer to the war, I gave statements that we shouldn't go in. And shortly thereafter, immediately thereafter, and honestly, a lot of reporters said, hey, right at the beginning, he made this statement. And that statement was a very major story in Esquire Magazine. So I just wanted to set the record straight. There is so much lying going on. And Hillary Clinton lied last night about numerous things, including her email, but she also lied about this. Had I been in Congress at the time of the invasion, I would have cast a vote in opposition. For years I've been a critic of this kind of reckless foreign invasions and look, let's face it, interventions, that's what they are, that have been a hallmark of trigger-happy Hillary and her failed career. It's been a disaster. Here's the bottom line. I was a private citizen. I had no access to briefings or great intelligence surveys that she did. I had no access to anything as a private citizen. Frankly, nobody really cared too much about what I said. I'm doing business. I don't even know why I was asked the question. I guess because I was asked the question. That's who knows. But I didn't have access to all of the intelligence information that she did and everybody else did. But in Iraq, my judgment was right. And hers, with all of this information and all of this great intelligence information, was wrong, along with a lot of other people, in all fairness. It's a big mistake. Totally destabilized the Middle East. It was a big mistake. Death to so many people. Hillary Clinton is always complaining about what's wrong. I just watched her on the tarmac. She tried to make up for her horrible performance last night. It was a horrible performance. So she went on the tarmac and told more lies. But she's been there, remember this, she's always talking about things that she's going to do. But she's been there for more than 30 years. And she's never done anything about it, never done anything. And all you have to do is look at New York State. When she ran for senator, she said she will bring jobs back to New York State. It's a disaster. No jobs have come back. Jobs have left. New York State, upstate New York, and the areas that she was talking about, they are disasters. All you have to do is look at New York State. She said she was going to bring tremendous jobs back. It will be wonderful, just like she's saying now. She wouldn't know how to bring a job back. She wouldn't have a clue. So it's all talk, but nothing happens. And that's what's going to happen with our country on jobs. And nobody is going to bring jobs back like Donald Trump. I will be the greatest jobs-producing president that God ever created. And I say that with my pastors in the front row. With my pastors, believe me. So we're on track now to spend, listen to this, $6 trillion. $6 trillion. Could have rebuilt our country twice. All together on wars in Iraq and Afghanistan and the Middle East. Meanwhile, massive portions of our country are in a state of total disrepair. It's time to rebuild America. And when I say that, we will also, before we get totally started, we will take out ISIS. Remember that. We have no choice. We have no choice. Too many Americans living in our inner cities have not been included in the American dream. We are a nation, and we're one nation. When any part of our country hurts, our whole country hurts. My goal as president will be to ensure that every child in this nation, African American, Hispanic American, all Americans, will be placed on the ladder to success. And I define that as great education and a great job. The ladder rests on a fundamental foundation. We need safety. There's such danger in our inner cities. There's such danger in our communities. In order to help our children succeed, our first duty is to ensure that every kid in America can grow up in a safe community. You read what's happening. You see what's happening. You can't have prosperity without security. This is the new civil rights agenda of our time. The right to a safe community, a quality education, and a wonderful job.